Welcome to a Dominican Moment. Join us the third Saturday of each month. Join us at the Lay Prevention Council meeting in San Jose, California, 14th, 15th of August. Joining us for this meeting in this video. Visit us at DominicanIdaho.org. Visit us at shop online at stdominicstore.com. Thank you.
I think what we've gone through, I have been a few LPC meetings, and we've never gone through business this prompt. So I just say thank you. And to say that it's almost 3 o'clock and we're not trudging into 6 p.m. Amazing, it's kind of cool. And with all these people, there's probably 15 more people here than on the past. So, Frank.
Motion to start happy hour earlier.
Done. Hey, Frank. I knew I agreed with you on a lot of stuff. Anyway, I thought some of the stuff we want to discuss, because the next thing and final thing on the discussion here is good of the order. There's also a discussion here with regard to governance and that kind of thing, so that would be open, it's something that we brought in from last year, what's occurred up to date, if anybody has any questions on that. But I want to focus on the good of the order. One of the things that has been my focus, obviously, the formation, and what's connected to formation is the PD, and what's carefully connected to governance and the direction the chapters are going are in that formation of the leadership and what they do. So at the encouragement of Father Augustine and the clients in my head, I think that's a great idea. Let's talk about formation. Kind of turn the table or turn the podium in a proverbial way over to you. What are the things that and you could take some time if you take some time and you talk to your LPC rep or your observer, whoever's with you, who can talk. And some of the things we'd like to hear from is, what is your formation focus? What works? What have you tried to do and attempted to do? What has worked? What has failed? And what is your imminent goals down the road that you hope to accomplish, especially the ones that are dealing with a lot of growth and that type of thing. Some of these issues we're going to cover in the Prioreesses meeting tonight, but not necessarily about formation, and the experience of formation is in this room presently. So, I'm going to open the floor to that. Would anybody like to answer the question, what does your formation program look like? And what is your hope? What is your plan? And give us some observations of what's worked so well in the past.
Initial or ongoing?
Yeah, initial, particularly initial formation, but ongoing is critical to keeping people around. So both will be up. So when you answer the question, it might be to say you're focusing on the initial formation or ongoing. Ongoing can be reading a book, a very good one, jointly. That might be a good example of those. It keeps you focused, reading about the things, that kind of thing. Anyway, anybody willing to stand up to the microphone and give us a little bit of review?
I'll let people think about that, but while you're talking, it seems to me that we might all be, in this age of technology, the way everything is being shared, including with websites and Google Docs and so forth. I talked to many members about this. What I'm thinking about this is, what are you guys reading this year? Oh, we read that book last year. Oh, I heard about that. Is that worth reading? Maybe publishing a list of recommended readings and books that people can jump on the website and then have a name there to contact so that somebody can say, how'd that go for you? And how long did it take you to get through it? And how'd you read it? We do that for our chapter, and so it'd be real easy for us to compile a list of books and
be something like an annotated bibliography.
Yeah.
But also, do you have permission to speak?
Yes.
Um,
You may need the microphone though.
Well, she can't vote.
I know.
Oh, okay, good.
If we can have
Oh,
it.
well, we can grab it.
And yell.
You grab it.
There you go.
No, that's great.
Get a spotlight.
Francesca, we want to hear from you, so don't
Just a
worry.
clicker from the mic stand.
I was thinking that, we had books too, but we also had questions that we gave to everybody. So if you turn in a book and you had questions that you did with your group, then that would be also very helpful. And so while I'm at it, our group has studied St. Catherine, and we, in our interviews of the new people that are coming in, they mentioned how much that changed their lives. And so I would say, if you don't have it in your formation, initial formation, work her in somewhere in your formation, because she's still changing lives to this day.
That's
And then
great.
Vicki, you want to talk about what you've done this year with us?
What?
I don't know, what did I do? So ongoing formation, this is my first year as a Prioreess. And was trying to figure out what are we going to do in terms of having a theme. And we have student brothers who are religious assistants, and we get a new student brother every year, and it's always like, okay, what are we going to talk about during ongoing formation? So I thought maybe it would be good to just sort of go back to basics. What is basic Dominican identity, spirituality, charism? So we've had a series of monthly meetings that focus on some aspect of Dominican identity and spirituality. So we've had some readings. We looked at the Dominican Rosary, looked at the scapular. Next year we're going to be doing some history of the Western Province, and there's, so just, I don't know, where's my topic list? I kind of can't remember what all we did. But the other thing that we did is try to do, during our meeting, sort of a deep dive on Dominican saints, because it was sort of, I thought was getting a bit of a short shrift. And so I created a penance for myself by pulling out a list of Dominican saints and their feast days and blessings between each meeting, and then pull out, to more often than not, the lay saints, to have a little bit of extra reading that comes either from the Proppers or from Sister Mary Jean Dorsey's book or something. So there's a whole bunch of, as you were talking about, very interesting lay blesseds and saints that I knew nothing about. But, I mean, so now we get to read about one or two of those each month. So we have a little corner of our meeting that's devoted to Dominican saints and blesseds.
How rich that is of the source.
Thank you.
Have Mike will travel.
One of the things that we did,
Just really quickly, and this came from Bryce, who's part of the Tacoma chapter. He's a teacher, and we had a lot of, our reading before was, I think, the Summa, and it was a little intimidating, actually it was a lot intimidating for a lot of people. And when he came on, he came up with like, every month we had the same 3 questions, and it led to really great discussion. And it's like, what was new to you from the reading that we read? What do you see in a new light? And what do you still need to know? And that has really helped everyone at each small group table have ongoing conversation. There isn't like a stallmate or someone feeling like they're less intelligent than somebody else. Everyone is sharing like, what was new to you? What did you know but like now understand a little bit better? So we use that as a model for like jumping off questions and helping people motivate conversation. So we found that really helpful.
Can you repeat that?
It's like, what is new? What do you see in a new light? And then what do you still need to know? Like we were reading the slaughter of the lambs for Jesus, and everyone's like, how much blood was there? And I was like, oh, guys, like, I don't think we really need to know. They're like, it says mountains of blood. So somebody wanted to know if we could quantify that, and I was like, guys, come on. But it was funny. It led to funny conversations, but we use that same 3 questions, and it really just helps conversation keep going.
and what was your second question?
What do you see in a new light? So maybe you know about it, but maybe you see something new about it that you had not noticed before after doing the reading?
You know, that saves us. What do you need to know? Saves us from prejudice.
Yeah.
How do we get to know that subject better, or that person better, or the situation better? What do I need to know to understand it better?
So I got a request to say it again. So the first question is, what is new to you from whatever you're reading? The second question is, what do you see in a new light? So maybe you knew about the assumption, but maybe after reading this chapter of Mary and the assumption, like blows your mind, you know? And why? Because then that leads to really good conversation. And then the third question is, what do you still need to know? What questions are not being answered and that you're like, I really want to know this? And then our formation director would look into that question and answer it, or email that person or that group and say, hey, you guys had a lot of questions about XYZ. Here's what I found out, you know? So.
You know, one of those was this yesterday, Father's homily on the sins and on the cross, the love and the sin, and don't separate those two. I have never heard that.
Oh, that was Sister Maria de Santo Domingo, and it's a book called Revelations.
The weird part is it was in the readings this morning. Yesterday you preached about it, it was in the readings this morning. And it's so subtle, but yet the light shone in my head when I could read it. It was there. It was really cool.
Yeah, we did something a little bit different this year. We kind of, I don't know, it was kind of random. Like, we had a couple, they took the Divine Comedy. We had 3 different months where we did Purgatory, you know, Inferno, and Perditio.
Another place.
Sorry, my brain's fried. We had another member talk about the spirit of the liturgy. We did a book review on that, you know, by Ratzinger. I personally did an apologetics type of deal on the Inquisition and the Crusades. It's been fun. It's been fun. So, yeah, I mean, we kind of tried to focus a little bit on apologetics and, you know, getting out in the world and, you know, speaking against the myths of the faith basing on the Inquisition and, for example, in the Crusades, how the secular or the Protestant world spin that against the Catholics.
Right.
And, you know, I think it's been fairly well received in the fraternity. People didn't know the facts. They didn't know, you know, a lot of things. They were assuming that, you know, the bad things about the church, whereas, you know, maybe the Inquisition saved lives and didn't, you know, really send a lot of people to the stake. And I think we as Catholics need to know that and be able to defend what we've done in the last 1,000 years, because it's pretty much been for the good.
Thank you. I think there's a lot of stuff in there just touching on better idea of what happened during a given period of history and how it explains the Catholic faith better. Good diet.
What we have been doing, and we're fortunate to be at St. Albert's because we have access to a lot of the priests. So Father John Morris wrote a book called Jesus in search of Jesus the person and the mission in search of the historical Jesus. And he told me not to say he was the presider because he's not. He's leading the discussion, as he says. And we get to talk about learning what about Jesus is based on myth and what can be substantiated as being historical. And it was an eye-opener to learn that some of the things that we learned when we were growing up about Jesus is really not historical, but mythical. And some people said, I'm going to believe it anyway. And he says, I'm not trying to tell you what not to believe. I'm just trying to tell you that it's not historical. So it has been really a wonderful exercise in making people think about why do you believe what you believe, and can you substantiate that? And I know you can understand this, the attorneys in the room, we always want the evidence. And so we call everything a fact if it can be based and proven by the evidence. And that's how Father John approached his book, and it has been awesome. So I would recommend it.
I appreciate that.
It's, he
Thank you.
wants the name, the name of the book. It's Jesus, the Person and the Mission, Searching for the Jesus of History, or by Father John Morris, OP.
Thank you.
For initial formation, we've been using St. Dominic by Sister Mary Jean Dorsey to introduce people, and we've gotten a really good response from that. I think we'll use that, and we'll switch over to the other books. Our chapter, for 6 years, we've been reading the Summa of the Summa, which we finished. And at every meeting, we have a saint presentation, a Dominican saint's presentation. And this year, we started with the Gospel of Matthew.
Good place to start.
Okay, yes, sorry. Brother Jeff needs to be recognized.
Thank you. For us, I was going to say, one of the things we introduced because of the hyper-intellectualism and the Dominican charism is I do well with pictures. So what we did, I think they did for me in sympathy, is we do Visio Divino, which is a beautiful addition to what we do. Prart being an amazing Dominican artist, doing that. Also for those new in formation, Theology and Sanity by Frank Sheed. We've started there as well in this idea because theology is just this huge, overwhelming, mammoth. And to be able to take those things and have those things, the basic understanding what everyone should know is what we just started that as well. So we want to share that.
Good stuff, Frank Sheed.
The book name is Theology and Sanity
By Frank Sheed.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's one sensitivity and sanity.
Master, actually.
Are you supposed to sheet or get that one?
S-E-A-T-E-D. Or maybe it's
S-H-E-E-D.
One of the things our chapter did was we've done 4 colloquia, and I don't know why we did it, it was kind of nuts, but we did some ongoing information, and it occurred to me we should answer the question, what is an indulgence? It wasn't mine, it was actually one of the gals came up with it, but what we did was eventually, we had 12 speakers, we wrote down the question in historical, and each member of the chapter who wanted to, we sliced up into subject matter and they wrote a paper on it, brief, but not long, but also a talk. And so we got picked a Saturday a year from the date that we started this, and then we advertised it and everything. And we got probably 20 people to show up, not a lot, but each presenter did their particular study on the aspect of indulgence, and we tackled the question. There's actually a couple of those still on our website, where they actually typed it out and cleaned it up and put it on there about indulgences. So it was really, another one was on Mary and Eucharist, another one was on Catholic social teaching from the American perspective, and what was the last one we did? Father Ramelow came, and so did Father Brian Mullady, and they just did a fantastic job just doing a colloquium. Everybody, all the members are just kind of filled up with information, and they get to study and do it themselves. Anyway, go ahead.
We've been doing this for years, but it's every September, it's the start of the school year, we have an hour of silence and adoration. And it goes along with giving others the fruits of our contemplation. And how do you get to contemplation? People they're accustomed to doing. Everything is doing. How much can we do? We've got to do this, and just to wind down, and how uncomfortable it is when you first start to just sit in silence. Is the proverb, the greatest revelation is stillness, and to just calm down and be in the presence of the Lord. And of course, we have the perfect place across the street at the Corpus Christi Monastery. So it invites us. When you have a vocation to a place like that, it invites us to let the Lord in and let Him tell us where we should go and what we should do. And it's so interesting to see people come out of that. They're different, they're quiet, they're open, and that's where you can start teaching. But their whole body expression is different than when they walked in. And we want to get them started with that kind of thing, but we all need it, so it's for the whole chapter.
That's right. It's a chapter apostle, it sounds like. One of the things our chapter has done is we started a online Bible study, and we just read St. Thomas Aquinas' commentary and St. John's Gospel, and we just go at whatever speed. We're not trying to get somewhere, but just to have a good discussion. We do that twice a month, and part of the reason was to develop a lot of people more information, but another reason was some people have more of an appetite for these things, and by having an optional extracurricular thing, it really motivates some people. And in general, St. Thomas is the go-to guide for almost everything. Sometimes people limit their experience of him to the Summa, and usually to the first part of the Summa, which is very difficult, because he's talking about God and His essence and Trinity, and those are the things that you learn last, naturally speaking, if you're trying to understand so far as they can be understood in this life. But the other parts of the Summa, where he deals with morals and the sacraments, those are more accessible. But in addition, he's very different when he comments on Scripture, and he's very different when he writes sermons. And one little work that I think is good for everybody are the so-called catechetical instructions, where he has commentaries on the 4 pillars of catechesis: the Our Father, along with Hail Mary, the 7 sacraments, the 10 commandments, and the Creed. He quotes Scripture over 600 times in a very small book, and basically it's the best catechesis I've ever seen. And it's accessible to everybody, because these were not given to theologians or philosophers. They were given to peasants during Lent after he had stopped writing. So anyway, I just want to recommend, always check him out, because he has great stuff.
Thank you.
Did we get that title?
Yes.
What's the title of the book?
Usually they're found under the name The Catechetical Instructions of St. Thomas Aquinas. It's his commentaries on the Our Father and Hail Mary, and on the Creed, the Apostles' Creed, the 10 Commandments, and the 7 Sacraments. His explanation of the 7 Sacraments is great.
His works are stored at aquinas.cc.
Is it on that website?
So Aquinas.cc, there's some friends of mine started a project to get all the Borromea of St. Thomas into English and Latin, and they publish books, but they decided to put everything they've done in books online for free, and you can have a Latin on one side and English on the other side.
Yeah.
And it's all organized. You can find all the work.
Thank you.
I don't know if everything's translated, but like 9%.
Thank you, man. Right?
Well, so every year, each one of our chapters struggles with the idea of what are we going to do this year for ongoing formation. So one of the ideas that I just heard come up at the beginning of this discussion was, why don't we put together a bibliography and perhaps maintain it on the website. Another idea might be that once each chapter has decided what they're going to do this year, that they send a simple 1 or 2 line email to the newsletter and say, St. Mary Magdalene in Tempe this year is studying this particular work. Name, title, name, author name, number, whatever, and perhaps a comment about it, and that's it. And that might also have the side effect of promoting chapters submitting other material each chapter at least reported in 2 or 3 lines what they're doing for
That is
ongoing
a great-
information.
That's,
That is
And
a
be able
great
to
idea.
share those ideas, and that might be even more lively reading than a dry old bibliography.
That's a great idea.
I love that. And for our group, when we circulate potential readings, you can hyperlink them to the Amazon titles and their reviews so that you can see exactly what they are.
Amen.
Very good idea. Part of the reason is because we follow examples. Humans follow good examples. Very attractive good examples. When another person does something well, we like to follow them. At least sin gets in the way, but hey, that's a really good idea because it telling us what a particular chapter is doing, and maybe we want to follow it. Good idea.
My sub-priors is saying that I need to mention a book that we studied this summer, The Art of Dying, which is translated from the medieval Ars Moriendi, and it was translated and revised by Father Columba Thomas, who is from the Eastern Province. He's also a medical physician and an ethicist. So during one of our sessions this summer, we talked about the 5 temptations and the consolations that come from the angels, but the 5 temptations from the evil side that every person faces as they die. And it's fairly universal: challenges to faith, challenges to patience, and so on. So it was really interesting. It's a tiny little book. The author is Father Columba Thomas, and it's published by the National Catholic Bioethics Center, if you'd like to support them instead of Amazon. National Catholic Bioethics Center. And yeah, Father Columba Thomas.
Does you have a book about the art of living? I think I'd rather read that.
also, if you do get it, it has a lot of woodcuts with Latin sayings in it, and I translated those this summer. So if you're interested in reading it, if your group is, then I can send you the translations. They're hard to read.
Because they're in the old script.
One of the things that we do sometimes is open a question for discussion. One of those being, I remember off the top of my head, is what is the difference between truth and honesty? So we just pose the question, throw it out, and let everybody wrestle. And another one was, what's the difference between preaching and teaching? Another one is, what's the difference between argument and debate? All those are fun to examine because sometimes you get to it, but there are distinctions there. And part of it is it sharpens your understanding and makes those things very real.
Thank you, Dave.
They're just meant to make you think in a group, and you talk it through, and you begin to understand, hey, there is a difference between these things we often use the same meaning.
I think someone already mentioned this, but I think it's very important to cultivate the spirit of contemplation. So Lexia Divina, you read the Bible in a prayerful way and then meditate upon what you read. And someone who's really good, I think the rosary is the ultimate way of doing that, scriptural rosary. But someone who's really good just in general about meditation is where he has all these meditations that he's written, and they're short. He has a whole book on the Eucharist, another whole book on Our Lady, on Passion, just tons of good stuff. And I think it's hard to get it inexpensively in print, but it's almost all online in old PDFs. Karen books you can sell it cheap. That's how they sell it.
Now, there was one done on the art of dying, but he also wrote a book called Preparation for Death.
That's right. And he has another one on.
I read that. It's so sweet. I mean, and it has all these very short meditations, one per day, and each one is just poundful of thinking things through.
Yeah, he's a later read all these people before. He has two other books, Prayer, the Means of Salvation and Perfection. And then it has one on the,
Can you give us the author again?
St. Alphonse Marie.
Oh, okay.
He also wrote a book called The Glories of Mary,
That's right.
Preparation for Death, The Passion.
Yes. And there's one that I think is of interest to third orders because we participate in the religious life of the Dominican order and other third orders in their religious orders. But it's called the Spouse of Jesus Christ. It's about the spiritual relationship we have with God as akin to marriage. And St. Thomas touches on this when he says that baptism forms a union between Christ, between God and the soul as akin to marriage. And so he has a whole book on this. It's aimed at religious, but I think there's a lot in it that would really benefit third orders when you think of yourself as a bride of Christ in your soul, and he's the bridegroom. And instead of babies, it's spiritual fruits, faith, hope, and charity, and increasing divine life. And then your fruitfulness when you preach and share that with others. Anyway, just that emphasis on taking what you learn in theology and meditating on it so you can contemplate it and it draws you closer to God in an effective way. St. Thomas says that John the Evangelist contemplated God in a number of different ways, and one of the ways he says his contemplation is perfect. He says contemplation is perfect when it adheres to the thing known by affection and love. So when we contemplate God and then we adhere to Him, that's when our contemplation is perfect. Anyway,
What is the name of the book? I'm sorry.
so any of the books by St. Alphonse Marie, the last one I'm talking about is the Divine Spouse.
Divine Spouse.
Yeah.
When called Preparation for Death, it's really about how to learn life, but how to live life in preparation for death. He has a Lenten contemplation in there for every day of Lent. He has a rosary in there, biblical quotes, and then three-quarters of the book is meditations every day. Just a small meditation, maybe page and a half at most, and they're very, very beautiful, and it includes a prayer. And if you're contemplative, you'll love them. It's a very good, it's called Preparation for Death. Sharon?
I'd like to offer this apostolate that we are doing. Actually, it's called the Seven Sisters Apostolate. And we make a holy hour every day of the week for a priest. And right now we're making a holy hour for the promoter of Dominican vocations. And so since I'm the anchoress, I had to organize it for all the seven sisters. So every day of the week, a holy hour is made for this particular priest. I think of, I might as well tell you his name, John Winkowitz, Father John Winkowitz. So we've been praying for him all year long. And then the men can say a rosary if they want to participate. But just Google it. It's called the Seven Sisters Apostolate, and you can pray it either for a Dominican priest or you can pray it for your pastor, your regular church.
That's beautiful. That's what St. Dominic did right out of the gate, was get the means to pray at the monastery there in France. Very good. One that trying to think of another author is Garrett Lagrange. I know most of you have been exposed to him, but I picked up the first book it's been a little less than 5 years, and what a sweet writing. It's really beautiful. And he played a large role in restoring the church, I understand, in France after the Revolution, particularly into and up to the Vatican II. But his writing is just so, he reminds me of Benedict XVI. For whatever reason, but you get a book of his, Garrett Lagrange, can't put it down, or at least if you do, you pick it up again the next day. Really fascinating writer. And I think, well, anyway, there's lots of authors out there. That author is just fantastic. writes one about the nature of God. I forget the name of it exactly, but really beautiful book. The guy was very talented. I think he died shortly after Vatican II, but born in the 1800s. But again, any other things?
So these two little books are really good. This one, everybody probably already knows, The Secret of the Rosary by St. Louis Bonfort. Yes. One thing to notice about it is built like a rosary. It actually has 50 chapters and decades. The other is this book on the Eucharist, and it's really trying to promote daily Mass, which is something as Third Order Dominican lady we try to do. But it has lots of stuff. It's mostly quotations from the saints on adoration and attending Mass and Christian communion. They're both able to be bought in bulk for very cheap, so I really recommend both of these for holy hours and to understand the Rosary as a school of prayer. And there's an update for this book by a young man named Gabriel Castillo. He calls it The Power of the Rosary. This book's 250 years old, so he wrote a book to kind of bring it up to date. There's been a lot of stuff that's happened with the Rosary in the last 250 years. And it's a very good book. Everyone I've given it to has really liked it. But that's another one I recommend.
Thank you, Matt. Very good.
Oh, Carolyn has some of these. These is very Eucharistic love.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
The Power of the Rosary? Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Two things. One, when we're at a loss for what to do, we kind of look to our Holy Father. So a couple years ago was the Year of Hope, so we decided to do something on hope, and then Thomas Aquinas. So we kind of look for the broader picture and see what we can bring in that way. But what Max said, our order, our chapter has danced around the Summa for many years, but we've come upon the Summa Illuminated, a Dominican priest back east, Catherine Cuddy, just did one, and it looks very doable. So I like the idea of like, this is what we're doing this year, and we'll tell you how it goes. And we'll, something to assume that maybe we can all yeah, at least the beginning.
Great idea, because that's a problem. Anyone else?
One quick thing I'll add that we've done in Seattle is in addition to the study material, thinking of, as Tisa was saying, the questions that we ask, but also how we carry that out. So we have 30-some people at each meeting on average that are professed before we do initial formation. And so doing that in small groups and then having people share that with a larger group, or having people try to give a 5, we have a cap of 5 minutes because we give a minute in the microphone, we'll be here for 3 hours. But giving them that opportunity not to just discuss, but then to have a very simple practice of preaching with their brothers and sisters, and which should be a comfortable place to do that.
That helps us train us not to get too preachy, but to understand. St. Peter says in 1 Peter 3:15, "Be ready for a defense of your faith, but to do so with gentleness and reverence." Good place to sharpen that sword is among each other, so you don't start yelling at one another. Because if you think you're going to win the battle, you can win or you lose. I was just thinking, one of the things, a modern era that has occurred is the idea that culture is separated from religion somehow. Obviously, this is obvious to everybody in the room. Okay, and there's a book written in 1949 called Ideas Have Consequences. It's a great book. It's kind of complicated. I was surprised I picked it up, and it's read like a tech or a science book, which I'm not good at. But if you read it carefully, it's really dynamic. The idea is that we're living with ideas 800 years ago, just after St. Dominic. We call it nominalism. And then we're living in it today. So don't let, I guess my lesson I'm trying to say is, all these things matter. Historical things come together, ideas come together. Theology is the queen of all sciences, and you see it in every branch of sciences. It exists there, and it's the mother, the queen mother of all sciences. And ideas have consequences. And we see that even today more than ever. I just really think that's something. Father, would you like to say something?
I was reminded about Summa. It is correct, going from the beginning to the end of the Summa is not always a good idea. But there are certain things that you can go to the Summa for, and specifically, reflections on the life of Jesus is a very important point in the Summa. So if you want to go to part 3, and after question 27, you get reflections upon Jesus and his life. You have to get past the incarnation part, which is a little bit hard for theology. But once you get into the baptism of the Lord, and you go to his passion, you will get some beautiful fruit all throughout his life. And you'll see how so many things come together. So I do recommend part 3 of the Summa, and you go to the baptism of the Lord and read all the way through the Passion. There are some beautiful things. The second part is to go and speaking about virtue. The easier thing is to look at the vices, because when you look at the vices, then you'll see perhaps what virtue you might want to look into. So, for example, there are 5 vices related to speech. And they're all vices because they get at different problems related to our speech, like whether our speech breaks a friendship, or whether our speech gives someone a bad name. So these are all bad things. So to go to the vices is perhaps a good place to start, because, this is the second reason, apologetics usually doesn't start with virtue. Apologetics starts with vices. And so if you can get some of the intricacies of the vice and then work into the virtues, then it actually becomes a better way of engaging other people. So those are my 2 things about the St. Thomas, but I totally agree. Commentary on the Hail Mary, which isn't the whole Hail Mary, right? Just the first half of the Hail Mary. And Thomas Aquinas is the one who actually added the name Jesus to the Hail Mary. Okay, so we have Dominicans all the way through sort of making this prayer more rich. And so Thomas Aquinas added the Jesus. And it's said, although it's hard to prove, that Antoninus of Florence added that second half of the Hail Mary. That's kind of similar to what we have right now. So we have that. We also have the Our Father, which hasn't changed. So Thomas Aquinas' commentary on the Our Father, which is beautiful.
Pius V who added it officially to the Rosary, the second half.
Yes, but Pius V came after.
Yeah, he made it official for the whole church.
Yes. So we have the one who, where it came from, and then the one who made a stamp of it and made it official.
He doubled the length of the Rosary, just think.
Yeah, that's right. So maybe that's why some prayers can get through so fast. They're in the old Rosary. I want to speak of two more things, and Vicki reminded me of it. The Cloud of Witnesses website is about our Dominican saints' blesseds, and it's specifically geared towards things that will enhance your understanding of the saint or blessed, or something that ties into a unique aspect to a saint saint or blessed. So one that would enhance. So Zetislava, you can read 2 things on Zetislava. Her life, which is very, the Mary Jean Dorsey is beautiful, but she gives a page, maybe a page and a half to each one, right? So this one you get maybe 4 or 5 pages. Or something that's unique to her, which would be for Saint Zetislava, about the liturgical cult related to Zetislava. So in the 1600s, for example, there was a well that was used to give water so that people could bring this to their sick mother. Okay? So these type of things where you learn something more about the saint or blessed as well as something more unique. For the saints, I put in 2 things at least. For Catherine of Siena, there's 11 items in there, including her possible relationship with another Dominican blessed at the time, Andrew Franchi, including also some things after her life. So how her works were received in Germany, or how her miracles after death were received. There are a couple things that have never been translated into English, and that is to our Dominican shame, and that is the Castellano process. Now, it sounds weird, Castellano process. What do you think that is? It sounds like maybe the way of maybe cooking a good paella. So, but no, the Castellano process is Catherine of Siena's canonization process. Started in Venice and then approved by the Pope. So Pope Pius II, who canonized Catherine, did not use any other process except for that one in the 1400s that was called the Castellano process. In that work, there are priceless, unknown in English, stories about Catherine of Siena. The book is this big, 500 plus pages. All right? So, I took one of those stories, just 3 pages, from a blessed John Dominici, who went to this process, gave his testimony, and the testimony is threaded through in many different ways. So read that, and you'll find out something very interesting about Catherine of Siena and Blessed John Dominici, who tells about his story and then tells about other people he heard and the miracles associated with them. This is a priceless document if you want to translate anything. Everything else has been translated. Everything. Her dialogue, her letters, her prayers. The English is better than any other version in any other language, except for the original. And even the original, not quite clear. Okay. The English is the best version. But what we do not have is a translation of this document, which gives us a real understanding of what people thought of Catherine of Siena after she died, what they thought of her. Okay? So that little bit of a story is there on the website. There are saints and blesseds that you might never have heard of, and the saint or blessed that I want to highlight is Catherine Raccognini. So I say Catherine de Ricci, but it's actually Catherine Raccognini. Catherine Raccognini, exactly, R-A-C-C-O-N-I-G-I. Catherine Raccognini lived a beautiful life of virtue for her first 20 years as a lay Dominican, and then she was accused of being a witch. Because, well, all those things that were mystical went away. All right? And there was a famous Italian Renaissance philosopher who actually wrote a book to defend her. His name was Pico della Mirandola. Not the most famous Pico della Mirandola, but his nephew, who's also famous. He wrote a work to defend her from those who accused her of witchcraft. Now, when you think about our Dominican saints and blesseds, you don't think of someone being accused of witchcraft, right? But here we have this wonderful woman. Now, the Blessed Catherine Rappagnini is an 88-page document that was translated about her 20 years of her life, right? It's actually a translation of her document that was made by her confessors while she was still alive. And it's priceless to hear her opinions. One of the revelations was the devil really got to her and started to accuse her of pride, started to accuse her of vainglory. And what did she do? How can I be proud? Aren't you stupid to think that I would want to be like God? What's that saying to the devil, right?
Oh, wow.
And then she goes and headbutts him. Okay? Now, devil gives his own punches himself, okay? But this is our understanding of our Dominican saints and blesseds. They're amazing people. So the next thing I want to focus on is that more than 50 of the people I have written about are in the 20th century. Okay? So actually not more than 47 of them are in the 20th century. Not just saints, blesseds, but also venerables, servants of God, and generally holy people. The last one died in 2014. So we have a great understanding of our Dominican saints and blesseds. And I really want to point out this as a great secondary resource for you. Once you go and say the Mary Jean Dorsey is not enough, St. Honor's family, once you say that, then go here. And you'll be amazed at the beauty. The next thing is the beauty. So part of what makes our Dominican lay saints and blesseds unique is not only the fact that they're apostolate and preaching and mystical life, but also their relationship to beauty. And it's not just Fra Angelico or Andrew Avalon, our priest artists, but it's also lay Dominican artists. One of the most famous in the art world is named Maurice Denis, D-E-N-I-S. And you'll find a little bit about his community of artists in the Cloud of Witnesses. You'll also find art in other areas. Elia of San Clemente, who is a Carmelite nun, was a lay Dominican before she became a Carmelite nun.
Okay.
I count her.
Okay.
I count her. And I translated this work on her from Italian to English, and at the end of it, what a beautiful image of the saint. I said, I gotta put this in. And so I put in this beautiful icon of Blessed Elia of San Clemente. We have also art for Louis de Montfort. So Louis de Montfort was famous at the last 10 years of his life leading processions. He basically walked everywhere and then got everyone else to walk everywhere. All right? And the map maker for the king was in town and said, this is wonderful. I'm going to draw this procession. And he did. So in here, in this website, you'll see a picture of the procession with a description of all the people who were in the procession that Louis de Montfort was leading. And he talks about the lay Dominican women. He says that Louis de Montfort chose certain ones The ones that look like, and this is the quote from the map maker, Amazons. Yeah, they're really tall. Yeah, they stood out. So this is that element of our life, our Dominican lady, that really is a joy. Okay, it's a joy. So look into some of these beautiful artists and the art within these pictures. Eye to Eye, Art, Devotion, and Savonarola is basically a description of an image that Blessed Columba Brieti had in her cell. And the image was 5 foot by 5 foot. It filled almost the whole wall, from top to bottom. And it was Jesus carrying his cross. And it's one of the most intimate, beautiful images of that, Jesus carrying his cross. Because, and this is where it gets really amazing. So usually he's like this in some of the pictures like Titian or others. For hers, he's stepping towards you, out of the image almost. And it's gorgeous. So you can look in there, if you just want to look at the art, you look at the art, you can read the description as well. So I really do recommend that if you have a saint or blessed, who's a lay Dominican saint or blessed, look here before trying to find out something on your own. And you'll find some original resources, unique resources, and resources that tell you about this person. So you can see that there's a real person behind this saint and blessed. And that's really key. All right, so, and I'm going to close this by just reading from The Spirituality of St. Catherine de' Ricci from original sources. Everything, by the way, of Catherine de' Ricci is in Italian, except for a little pamphlet Dominicans put out, which I don't really like. So, what do we have? Spiritual sayings and quotes of Mother Catherine. She often said, God is jealous of our souls, so he does not want anyone or anything other than him to be loved by us. Right? When we want some grace from God, we must continue to ask for it until we obtain it, because he has determined the number of requests for which he wishes to grant it. And if we leave out one, we will not be granted it. If he has determined that we ask, for example, a grace 100 times, if we ask 99 times, he will not obtain it. Very interesting spirituality, right?
Yes.
All right, you won't hear this too often. And when you read about her life as a girl, where she was told to pray 7 sets of 5 Hail Marys for mysteries on the Passion by her devoted aunt, you recognize where that comes from. Okay, so these are wonderful elements. Okay, so I really do want to push this so you can look at it and know your saints and blessings better. The next thing I want to talk about is money. So we'll go from sublime to ridiculous. All right. Friars cannot receive money, gifts themselves. No matter how much you love someone, you can't take it. Now, there's a real tax ID issue here. All right? We don't pay taxes. We don't pay taxes, we don't get tips, right? We don't get gifts, we don't pay taxes. And if we start doing this, then the organization that we're part of is threatened with an audit. And I don't want to threaten the Western Dominican province with an audit. So this means that if you want to give me something, sure, I'll take it, but I have to let someone know. Okay? It's sort of accountability. If you give me money, I let the superior know. I cannot receive a check in my name because I don't have a bank account. Once I get a check in my name, then someone starts to ask, well, where's your bank account? And suddenly I'm signing all my checks off. That looks like I'm laundering money. So no checks should have any friar's name on them at all. The only thing that should be on the check is the community that can receive it, because that community is the tax-free community. Okay.
So if you, for example, if brothers become made priests, they're ordained, so if we write a check to them, we can't write it to them in their name, we have to write it in the name of
The community.
So it has to be the Dominican.
So if they're student brothers, it goes to St. Albert's Priory. If they're in a community, it goes to that community.
So that would be St. Yeah, okay.
So that's the reason, okay? If a friar has a bank account, that is against our vow of poverty. We should not tempt the friars to have personal bank accounts.
But what if what if you didn't know that and you wrote a check in their name?
Oh, I know. That happens all the time. That's why I'm telling you now, so that you can tell other people in the future and just move forward with this.
But can they sign it over to the?
They will, and they have to.
They have to sign it over to the,
But don't put them in that position.
Yeah, that's
because when they're put in that position, then they're tempted to just take the check. Because some of them are signers on accounts. It gets out. It doesn't give the friars the opportunity to offer or to live out their vow of poverty. And so this gives them the opportunity, not the temptation, to live out their vow of poverty. No need for temptation.
How would you make up a check? Just an example.
Yeah, so the example would be to the community. So Gloria, the person who's at St. Raymond's, you make it out to St. Raymond's Dominican community, St. Raymond's house. Yeah.
Okay.
So these type of things are important for our continued existence as a tax-free identity of Western Dominican province. I've ranked as a political.
Here's an image you might want to keep in mind. My uncle was a Dominican friar in the Eastern Province for well over 45 years. He spent more than 30 of those in the missions all throughout the Middle Atlantic states, going from parish to parish to parish to parish, giving missions. He spent the last 3 years of his life in my home when I was about that tall. He owned nothing. His own name. He owned nothing. What little he had was given to him for his use by the province. That's an image I think we want to keep in mind when we talk about how am I going to give something to a friar. The answer is you can't.
Yeah, so
and you don't want to.
The best thing you can give a friar is praying a rosary. Spiritual bouquet is the best thing you can give to a friar. Having that hearty thanks is the best thing, right? Because money will never be enough, right? With regards to an exchange. And then if I do think it's enough, then I got other problems. Okay, so yeah, sure.
So again, for the newly ordained priests, so they're ordained in sacrifice.
So let's get this right away. When you're professed religious, that's when you enter into not being able to take money. Okay. So it's actually a profession. So it has nothing to do with ordination.
Okay, but I'm just saying, if a brother is ordained a priest and you wanted to give him a check, you wouldn't write it in his name. But you don't know where he's stationed at. Say he was ordained in San Francisco. Who would you write the check to? St. Dominic's?
You write to St. Albert's.
Because St. Albert's.
Well,
okay.
Who are you thanking for the ordination of the priest?
St.
8 years of formation.
I
right?
got it.
Yeah, so definitely make it out St. Albert's. No. You can do Western Dominican Province as well. Okay, so Western Dominican Province is the mother organization. St. cards is also the specific organization for formation. So it could be either one.
But you get gift cards.
I don't.
You do?
No, I know. So with gift cards are actually the hardest one to deal with. And so what I do personally is I take that out of my food allowance because I live alone. So it just means that I pay less for other things. But it doesn't mean that I'm thankful for getting them. It means that I can't use them for anything else, and I have to remember it, and I can't forget it. And then if I die with that, then I'm drinking about poverty. It creates, weird things for me. Yeah.
Just to tell you a little funny anecdote, when Father Paul was alive, we tried to give him a gift. We did give him a gift card. He gave it back and said, "I don't know how to use this."
Yes, I know how to use this. Yes. Yeah. Paul Connor.
Yes.
And so gift cards are especially kind of tricky. But we can give them to the community, and usually the community says, well, keep it for your own use. But it becomes a harder way of exchange. The thing about, if I guess money is a way of tribute. And if there's a tribute to be received, it shouldn't go to the one who is the result of formation. It should go to the people who taught the person all the things that they got. So if you want money as a tribute, like for ordination, then it should go to the people who made it that way. Yeah.
So, like, when we want to give our religious assistant stipend, or a stipend if a friar comes and gives a talk for our retreat, we just write the check out to Blessed Sacrament Prior.
That's right.
You're saying that's the right.
That's right. Now, one thing is, there are some things that need to be exchanges, like travel. And so if the person did the travel in their own credit card, then you'll want to ask whether they did that or used that. But it should say in the memo travel, so it should have some indication of what it's for.
Yeah, I was just thinking about off that question. So if we were to pay someone like you for like as a stipend or a speaking fee, we wouldn't make like a check out directly to you, we would make it out to
where I come from, which is St. Benedict Law.
okay.
So you have to ask where the community is, the friar's coming from.
That's the community who's responsible for him.
That's right.
And then if it's travel expenses, like say example, in your case, if we were to pay, if I was to run out a check to you for travel expenses, I would have to mark as travel, like the memo of the check.
So it depends on whether I used, so some friars still, and we got to figure this out in our provincial chapter, still have personal credit cards. So they got to work that out. But most of the friars don't have their own personal credit cards. So basically, they're already going to go to the community to pay the credit card anyway.
Yeah.
So you can still give it to the community. But I know that some friars have personal credit cards not associated with the community, and then you'll want to reimburse the friar who has to repay the credit card. So let them tell you. Otherwise, if they don't tell you, then give it to the community.
So along that line, is it appropriate to ask your guest speaker who's a priest, who should we make out the stipend to?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yeah. And if the person says, put my name on it, then say no.
Oh,
Yeah. No, I can't. All right. Now, you don't have to hold them to poverty, but that's not, if they say that, then that's a bigger issue that you don't need to hold someone to poverty, but you can't put, you can't put their name on it. So say, oh, well, where do you come from? And then that'll be the place where you send the check. Yeah.
So is this well understood between amongst the friars?
It's getting well understood. Yeah. Yeah. It's getting well understood. I'm on the provincial council, so I've gotten to see a lot of So, yeah, and it especially becomes difficult. So the reason why there's a lot of priests in purgatory is there's a lot of finances that are tricky and awful.
So, what about material things, like articles of clothing?
Yeah, gifts are really hard. We're actually not told we can't receive gifts. So it's really hard to live poverty. You think, oh, if you're poor, that's fine. No, we make it hard. So gifts are not really, unless the person sort of talks to the superior about how they're going to arrange a gift, what they're going to use the gift for. It becomes another exchange. It's the equivalent of money, and so we can't. Yeah. Hence the gift card thing. Yeah.
We have still have the microphone.
Sorry.
Yeah, so we sometimes have priests that come and facilitate our retreats. So when we say to the community, right, then the dollar amount, then in the memo line say Father Nathan's stipend.
That works fine. Yes, exactly. Now, before I forget, so I'm glad you said priests in general because that reminded me. This does not deal with diocesan priests. Diocesan priests get their own bank account because they don't take them out of poverty. This only has to do with religious. And it is every religious, but specifically our Dominicans. Okay, thank you. Yes?
Brothers don't go through that until they make their solemn vow?
No, they do it once they're in profession. Yeah, because they make their vow of poverty.
So we've been
well, God helps through that temptation. And I'm coming up here to talk to you about this so that, it becomes a little easier in each of our actions. So once you take the vow of poverty, you actually sign a document that says, I no longer accept gifts, and I no longer accept remuneration, so that even if I leave, you're not going to be paying me for my work. We sign a document that says that.
And to your point, if it's like a physical item that someone wanted to give, that should probably be approved by the superior to make sure that the house has use for it.
Yes, but if it's a physical item, don't presume that the person just will take it. Ask the person whether they want it. And then the person will figure out how to get that themselves. You don't have to go around that person and ask the superior or whatever. That's not your job. But if you really want to give a person the socks because you see that they have lots of holes in their socks, then, ask them whether they want socks. That would be the way of doing that.
Mary, that's a question.
Oh,
Father, what about gifts like food? Chocolate, bread, pastries.
I understand that, yeah.
Is that okay, or that's not good for us to do?
So with all food, it's good to ask. Because sometimes it becomes the replacement for the food you're going to make anyway. And so then there's this aspect of what you're providing is going to be provided for the whole community. But it is good to say that whatever you're going to give the one person does go to the whole community. So if you say, here's your candy bar, don't share it with anyone, that's not a good idea. Okay? Because they might actually do that, and that's not good for them. So if you're going to make, like, oh, I made a brownie for you, well, if you know 6 people in the community, then bring it enough for everyone, and then that's an easy enough gift to receive. Yeah. Thanks. That's a good question. Yeah. So a bottle of wine would be fine, as long as you let the person know this is not for you.
Father, at Christmas, Thanksgiving.
Same thing.
That's a follow-up. You have to give a big portion for the rest of the community.
Yeah, and when a Filipino person says big portion, they mean big portion. So, yeah, this is really good to know in general. And it's not like we get to feel awkward about gifts and money, and we don't really tell people this in general. So, it feels fine for me now because I've been on the provincial council, but 10 years ago, I'd been like, oh, I don't want to tell people this. Like, no, I need to tell you this because I've seen how bad it can get, and it gets pretty bad. So that's just, I'll just stop there because I will tell the story and I don't want to talk about it. So thank you very much. I know we're going a little past 4, but this has been important to say. All right.
Okay, the good of the order is done. Unless there's some other comments, questions, or anything. Okay, we're now at the end. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn closing prayer. Motion by Julie, second. Your name? Mary. Oh, Miss Mary. Any objections? Hearing none. Oh, wait, there's one objection.
I'm a first-time parent. I don't know anything about governance, about incorporation, 501c. What does that mean?
Well, I can make that relatively soon, quickly. The issue of governance is how the LPC is governed. We decided, I think 3 or 4 years ago, to incorporate, and which we did, and then we filed for 501c3, which was granted. So the body of the LPC unto itself, not the province, but the body itself, is a tax-exempt organization under federal law. Well, it's incorporated in Idaho, yes.
Does that include the fraternities?
No, it does not include the fraternities. That umbrella does not, each fraternity is free, of course, to perceive that. Probably 5 or 6 have sought that and obtained those 501c.
Oh.
Great question. And as far as governance, the issue also involves oftentimes how do we make decisions, things like that, how do we get there. I've already seen quite a bit of that.
So many donations that we make, like you had a special fund to Venezuela, but
Yes.
any donations to the
Any donations to your local fraternity that is tax exempt or to the Lay Prevention Council, as long as there's no exchange of consideration, which is to be something tit for tat, you get a tax exempt receipt.
You just have to receive donations for our fraternity?
You can.
If it's.
No, I didn't say that. I said if the fraternity is tax exempt.
Oh, okay.
But the LPC is tax exempt. So a donation to the LPC is tax deductible.
We're in the process of trying to get incorporated into Los Angeles Archdiocese so we can fall within their umbrella of coverage. And I encourage any of you that want to do that, try to do the same thing. You'll fill out a long application, and if they approve it, then you'll fall under their tax exemption, and any money that you give to the fraternity will be tax exempt.
And does it make it easier to get a bank account?
You should get a bank account. That allows you to get that.
That's really nice.
But you also have to.
No, it should not go to the diocese.
No, they have to. Don't you have to invoice you do? You have to report income and they hold the money for you.
But you have your separate.
Yeah, but I'm saying you're trying to get benefit from their tax exempt status.
Yeah.
There's some issues, a tax exempt status is a recognition. It does not create it. It's a recognition. Churches are automatically recognized. They don't even have to file a 501c3 application because they're recognized under the Constitution as tax because of the effective tax.
Dominican lady chapters are not the church.
No, they're not the church. And at least in our diocese, they wanted to reach in and control it to some extent. So be aware. Be aware. That's great if they're not. But I don't blame them for one because they're responsible. They're the ones that get audited if we are out diddling around with their.
That's why they give you a paper to say.
Yeah. You want to go through that? Great.
You do.
Well, no, that's great. I mean, if you get to spend your money the way you want to, all the better. But I don't want to how to answer to someone who doesn't have legitimate authority. That's that's just another question we have to answer. I respect that fact. We made the decision at one time to do that, and then we later regretted that. And because they started wanting to see what we were doing, which we weren't doing anything wrong. But I don't want to get a phone call saying you can't do X and Y when it's our discretion. Did all that discussion make sense? I mean, I think it's great you're doing it. I think it's fantastic. In contrast, the Idaho Diocese versus LA saying, you know, you're free to do what you want. This is bizarre compared, and then Idaho wants to control.
We have a motion on the floor.
Like all the question is on the floor, that should be adjourned. All those opposed, say aye, or I mean, all those in support say aye. It's getting late. Same sign of opposition. We're adjourned. 2026 LPC is adjourned.
All right, 10 minutes, Vespers in the church, and I'll be...
Join us at another presentation at the LPC meeting, the Lay Prevention Council meeting. Thank you. Join us at another presentation at the LPC meeting, the Lay Prevention Council meeting.